This lesson is from the 5th grade Houghton Mifflin English book. It is on quotations and it coordinates with pages 194 and 195 in the student textbook. Now there's a lot of information here, but I will walk you through it as we do some examples. You set off a direct quotation with quotation marks and you capitalize the first word. You're going to treat it just like a sentence. Use a comma to set off the direct quotation from the other words in the sentence. Place the comma outside of the quotation marks at the beginning of the quotation and inside the quotation marks at the end of the quotation. So Hannah announced, comma, that's on the outside of the quotation marks, my aunt works in a fire tower. Tell me what she does, comma, that's inside the quotation marks, said Henry. So if the words come before the quote, the comma comes outside of the quotation marks. If the quote comes before the words, the comma goes inside the quotation marks. If the quotation is a question or an exclamation, place a question mark or an exclamation point instead of a comma inside of the quotation marks. Sometimes a quotation is divided and each part is in quotation marks. If the second part of the divided quotation continues the original sentence, begin it with a lowercase or a small letter. If it starts a new sentence, use a capital letter. Do you think, asked Henry, that we could see the tower? If I take out ask Henry, do you think that we could see the tower is a sentence, so that does not get capitalized. I know that we can, replied Hannah. Let's call my aunt. These are two separate sentences, so we're going to capitalize let's. So let's try some examples. And now to me, the easiest way to do this is to find the sentence that the person is saying. So Jean asked, was there a terrible earthquake in 1906? What is she actually saying? She is saying, was there a terrible earthquake in 1906? Now, that's a sentence, so we capitalize, and it's a question, so we end it in a question mark. I have to set off the quote from the other words by putting a comma, and then I just put quotations around it. Peter replied, yes, it happened in San Francisco. What is he actually saying? He is saying, yes, it happened in San Francisco. So I have to capitalize it, and I'm going to end it with a period because that's a sentence. I have to separate it with a comma and put quotes around it. Over the years, said Jean, the city has been rebuilt. What is she saying? She is saying, over the years, the city has been rebuilt. So I'm going to capitalize and end it in a period because that is my sentence. I set it off with commas to separate it from the actual other words, and then I put quotes. Notice this comma goes inside the quotes, and this comma goes outside the quotes. How beautiful San Francisco is now, exclaimed Sarah. What is she saying? She's saying how beautiful San Francisco is now. I'm going to capitalize it, and that's an exclamatory sentence, so I'm going to put an exclamation point. I don't need a comma because my exclamation point is replacing my comma, and I put quotes. Okay, let's try some more examples. Let me move this down a little bit so we have some room to work, and let me get a different color. All right, Ralph said 10 fire engines arrived in 15 minutes. He's actually saying 10 fire engines arrived in 15 minutes. So I capitalize, and I put a period because that's a sentence, separate it with a comma, put quotes around the sentence. Ira exclaimed, it destroyed an entire block of buildings. She's actually, or he is actually saying it destroyed an entire block of buildings. So it needs a period and a capital letter. I separate it with a comma, and I put quotes around what they're saying. Wasn't a firefighter slowly injured, asked Holly. She's saying, wasn't a firefighter slightly injured? It's already got a capital letter, but it needs a question mark. I don't need a comma because the question mark is replacing the comma. I put quotes on both sides. Yes, but the people in the building escaped unhurt, said Ira. He's actually saying, yes, but the people in the buildings escaped unhurt. Okay, so I'm going to put a comma to separate it from the rest of the words in the sentence. You do not put a period here. You have a comma that's replacing that period if your quote starts the sentence. Put quotes on both sides. It was the biggest fire I've ever seen, exclaimed Ralph. He's saying it was the biggest fire I've ever seen. Whoops, I went a little too far. He exclaimed it, so you can use an exclamation point or you can use a comma. It's not really an exclamatory sentence. It doesn't have that question word, but we'll put it because it says he exclaimed, and we put quotes on both sides. I don't need the comma. Let me erase this a little bit. I went a little too far. Okay. Next one. The street was blocked off, said Holly. How did you see it? She's saying the street was blocked off. How did you see it? Two separate sentences. The street was blocked off, comma, said Holly, period. New sentence, capital letter, how did you see it? Question mark. And then I have to set off both quotes with exclamation point, or excuse me, with quotation marks. Well, said Ralph, we watched from 8th Street. Well, we watched from 8th Street is what he's saying. So we can put a period here, it ends the sentence. Set off the other words with commas, and then we quote what he is saying.